The main purpose of this assignment is to evaluate the performance of a company and compare it to other similar businesses in their market. In this assignment, we begin with a brief introduction of Tasek Corporation Berhad, which we explain about their company background, history of the company, and their nature of business. Next, will be followed by a ratio analysis of this company that is based on Tasek Corporation Berhad's annual report that consists of their financial statement of 2019. In this part, we will know more about liquidity ratios, leverage ratios, and profitability ratios. The next content of this assignment will be the common size ratios from Tasek Corporation Berhad's Statement of Financial Position for 2019 and 2018. In common size ratios, we need to compute the non-current assets and non-current liabilities and analyze the trends in the company's performance based on the computation prepared. As for both ratios analysis and common size ratios, we will comment on the company's performance and the trend of the company based on the ratio calculated. Okay, now we move on to the background of Tasek Corporation Berhad. Tasek Corporation Berhad is involved in the manufacture, selling and production of cement, cement-related products and ready-mix concrete in Peninsular Malaysia. Tasek Single Cement Plant commenced its production in 1964 in Ipoh, Perak, with an initial annual rated clinker capacity of 250 tons per annum. The name of the company had changed to Tasek Concrete Sdn Berhad on 1st of August 2006. Since then, Tasek Concrete has embarked on a series of expansion and currently has 9 ready-mix concrete batching plants in Klang Valley. The corporation net revenue for the financial year 2019 increased by 8.5% year-on-year, but would have been more if not for the continued intense cement price competition which started in the middle of 2016. This caused net revenue to be impacted by lower net pricing for both cement and ready-mix concrete products. Okay, so now I am going to explain about ratio analysis. There are two parts under ratio analysis, which are liquidity ratio and profitability ratio. The first one under liquidity ratio is current ratio. So for current ratio, the formula is current asset divided by current liabilities. So Tasek Corporation Berhad current asset is 244,916 divided by 74344 and we get 3.29 times, and the industry average is 3.66 times. So the company current ratio is 3.29 times while the industry average is 3.66 times. It shows that the company current ratio is lower than the industry ratio by 0.37 times. Thus, it means lower than the industry average may indicate a higher risk of distress or default, which the company is less able to pay liabilities or debt to creditors on time. Hence, Tasek Corporation Berhad needs to improve their sales performance in order to increase their account receivable and reduce their short-time debt and replace it with the shareholders' equity to pay their current liabilities. Okay, so the next one is asset test ratio. The formula is current asset minus inventory minus prepayments and divide by current liabilities. So for current asset is 244,916 minus 630 and minus 9,960 and divided by current liabilities, which is 744,344, and we will get 1.81 times, and the industry average is 2.99 times. So the company asset test ratio is 1.81 times, while the industry average is 2.99 times. It depicts that the company asset test ratio is lower than the industry average by 1.81 times. Tasek Corporation Berhad has an unsatisfactory performance as compared to the industry average. Companies with lower asset test ratios are considered to be less financially stable performance than those with a higher quick ratio. Hence, ways to improve the quick ratio would be to pay off the current bills and at the same time increase sales so that the cash on hand or account receivable will be increases. Okay, the next one is leverage ratio. The first one under leverage ratio is debt ratio. So the formula is total debt divide total asset and times 100. So the total debt is 76,064 and the total asset is 520,547, and then we times with 100 and we will get 15%. So the average assumption is 45%. So above calculation shows that Tasek Corporation Berhad debt ratio is 15%, while the assumption of industry average is 45%. Tasek Corporation Berhad ratio is lower than the industry average by 30%. This means that Tasek Corporation Berhad has a good performance because lower debt to equity ratio indicates a business use less debt to finance its growth. To maintain this good performance, Tasek Corporation Berhad must always issue new share or stocks. They also can make debt or equity swap. This method will cancel all the debt owing to them and reduce the debt of the company. Okay, so the next ratio under leverage ratio is debt to equity ratio. So the formula is total debt divide total equity and times 100. So the total debt is 76,064 and we divide it with 444,483 and times with 100. So we will get 17%, and the industry average is 42.4%. So the calculation above shows that Tasek Corporation Berhad debt to equity ratio is 17% and the industry average ratio is 42.4%. The company's ratio is lower than the industry average by equity ratio indicates it by 25.4%. This means that Tasek Corporation Berhad has a good performance because higher debt to equity ratio indicates a business uses debt to finance its growth. The most logical step Tasek Corporation Berhad should take to reduce and maintain their debt to equity ratio is by increasing their sales and profits by increase the selling price and reduce some costs. Okay, so for the next one is time interest earned. The formula is EBITDA divided by interest expense. So 27,837 plus with 312 and we divide it with 9,157 and we will get negative 3.01 times, and the industry average is 102.5 times. So Tasek Corporation Berhad time interest earned ratio is negative 3.01 times, while the industry ratio is 102.5 times. The firm has a lower ratio than the industry average, so the firm has lower ability and has insufficient earnings to fulfill its interest obligations. Tasek Corporation Berhad needs to make sure that their time interest earned is not declining lower than the industry average ratio by increasing their sales. They need to work harder to increase their sales in order to pay their interest payment annually on time.
Okay, move to profitability ratio. Profitability ratio is used to calculate on how efficient the organization uses its profit-making asset. Under profitability ratio, we have gross profit margin. Okay, the formula to calculate gross profit margin is gross profit divided by sales times 100. Based on the calculation above, the gross profit margin by the company is 12.12%, while the industry average is 20.5%. It shows that the Tasek Corporation gross profit margin is lower than the industry average. Okay, this illustrates that the company inefficiency in managing the cost of goods sold and the implemented pricing strategy. Okay, how to improve this is Tasek Corporation need to ensure that the cost of paying the supplier is reduced by requiring negotiating better deal with their supplier or taking cash discount from the supplier. Secondly, we go for operating profit margin that reflect the percentage of a profit a company produces from its operation. The formula to calculate operating profit margin is earning before tax divided by sales. Based on the calculation, the operating profit margin by the company is negative 6.14%, while the industry average is 1.2%. It shows that the operating profit margin is below than the industry average and indicates that the company has an unsatisfactory performance as compared to the industry average. Why? Tasek operation has the lower profitability because of the operating income margin is low, resulting in losses. Tasek Corporation improve their performance by increasing the selling price based on the other competitor so that the percentage of margin will increase. Thirdly, we go to net profit margin that is used to calculate the percentage of the profit they earn each time they receive revenue. The formula to calculate net profit margin is net income divided by sales times 100%. The net profit margin of the company is negative 4.16%, while the industry average is negative 1.0%. Okay, that's it. Corporation Berhad net profit margin is lower than the industry average, and it shows a poor performance because lower ratio means that Tasek Corporation Berhad is unable to generate the profit by converting the sale into actual profit. Okay, Tasek Corporation need to improve its operating expense and increase their selling price and need to decide whether it is appropriate to fully eliminate the unprofitable goods and services. Fourth, we go for return on asset that provide on how much profit a business will generate from its asset. Okay, the formula to calculate return on asset is net income minus interest expense times with tax rate divided by average total asset. Okay, based on the calculation, the company return on asset is negative 3.53, while the industry average is 5.3%. Okay, Tasek Corporation Berhad return on asset is lower than the industry average. It is not a good performance for Tasek Corporation because lower return on asset indicates that a business is less profitable and inefficient. How to overcome this problem is the management need to increase the ability to make profit from the firm investment and can keep the asset cost down by monitoring their asset expenses monthly. Last but not least, return on equity. The formula to calculate return on equity is net income available to shareholder divided by average shareholder equity. Based on the calculation, the return on equity of the company is negative 2.06%, while the industry average is negative 0.86%. It shows that the return on equity of the company is lower than the industry average. Furthermore, a low return on equity means that Tasek Corporation may be in an unsatisfactory performance, not well managed, and may not reinvest the earning into productive asset. How to improve this is Tasek Corporation need to improve their asset turnover, increase their profit margin, and they need to distribute their idle cash.
Under non-current asset, property, plant and equipment decreases from 223,482 million in 2018 to 212546 million in 2019, as well as the percentage 42.65% and 40.83%. Meanwhile, for intangible asset, there is an increase from 625 million in 2018 to 1171 million, with percentage of 0.12% and 0.22% respectively. For right-of-use asset, no amount incurred in 2018, but in 2019, Tasek Corporation Berhad incurred 5,034 million with 0.97%. Investment in subsidiary show there is a decrease of 1,080 million and 0.70% since the company incurred 29635 million in 2018 and 28555 million in 2019. Besides, investment in associate does not change in amount but increasing in percentage from 4.12% to 4.15%. And last component for non-current asset is other receivable, also show an increase from 4165 million 0.79% in 2018 to 6733 million 1.29% in 2019. Under non-current liability, provision for liability and charges increased from 762 million to 793 million, as well as the percentage from 0.18% to 0.15%. Meanwhile, for this liability, there is no amount incurred in 2018, but in 2019, Tasek Corporate Berhad incurred 227 million with percentage of 0.04%. And last component for deferred tax liability, there is a decrease of 9190 million and 1.76% since the company incurred 9890 million in 2018 and 700 million in 2019. Under non-current asset for property, plant and equipment, the decreased trend on 2018 to 2019 is because the company has the changes in accounting policy, which is MFRS 16. Next, the increase in intangible asset is because there is an addition of computer software in 2019. Meanwhile, for right-of-use asset from 2018 to 2019 is increasing because Tasek Corporation Berhad has incurred long-term leasehold land, prepaid lease payment and office building. Furthermore, for investment in subsidiary, the amount of impairment loss is increasing from 2018 to 2019, which makes the amount of investment in subsidiary decrease. However, for investment in associate, there is no amount incurred as no changes that made during the current year of 2019. Last but not least, other receivable is increasing because the company give less loan to a subsidiary and less allowance for impairment than previous year. For non-current liability, provision is increasing because there is an increasing amount in unwinding of discount from 29 million to 31 million. Next, the lease liability of company increased from 2018 to 2019 because company has made contract lease to acquire right of use of asset, and last component for deferred tax liability is decreasing because the total amount of deferred tax asset is higher than the previous year. This ratio helps management prepare the right budget and plan a future action plan as a roadmap for the organization to achieve its objective. Analysis of the ratio let us compare the pattern of two or more companies over a period of time. This ratio can be contrasted with other companies in the same sector and help to analyze which business are better run than others. In addition, ratio analysis may also be used to find flaws in the activity of organization. Even though its overall performance may be very good, management should pay more attention to the vulnerability and take remedial steps to fix it. In conclusion, for a company, ratio analysis is relevant as it gets the company to understand the specific of the company operational data. The information derived from the statement is used to assess the performance of a company over time to decide whether a company is improving or declining, to compare the financial status of a company with the industry average.